Hello and welcome to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You can tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at GreaterSTLSN. So we'll talk a lot on this show because I do the football show also. We're going to talk a lot about the Cardinals. We'll get into other stuff. But of course, this should be an all-Cardinals show, definitely with what's been going on of late. And the Cardinals got to their 100 wins. And now they're for sure going to win the division and go in with all the best record in the National League. And it's kind of nice to go out there in the last week. You're playing a bad team in Atlanta. But it really doesn't matter what you do in this series, because no matter what, you're going to play the Cubs or Pittsburgh. And it's kind of good. You're in a stretch where you can get people to play that haven't played in a while and see what they got. A Mark Reynolds, a Matt Adams, a Randall Grichuk. See what Tommy Pham's got, even though he's not in the lineup tonight. Jay's actually in center field tonight. Still give these guys a shot and see what the best roster you can put out there is. And it's just how consistent this pitching staff has stayed all year. No matter what situation you put them in, except for maybe Waka of late. And in the first 3-game series, it's having Waka that priority. You only really needed 3 pitchers in a 5-game series. Well, that's easily Lackey, Garcia, and Lynn. And is this injury that we have heard nothing about since last year, the stress reaction fracture thing, is that finally getting to Michael Waka? Is it finally time to maybe put the brakes on? And he's probably not going to get another start this season. I wouldn't see him getting another start. This is the time to rest him while you got the time. And I can't see that the Cardinals really thinking that you need him in this series. It was Garcia last night. It's Lackey tonight. Most likely Lynn tomorrow. But if you stay on the pitching, you also look at to see what you're going to have to go into the bullpen. Is this really Choate's last shot at it? Is this his last shot this week to get on the roster? Because he set the record for most appearances without recording an out. Yes, your pitcher on the St. Louis Cardinals, Randy Choate, that you paid a bunch of money to go out and get left-handers, can't do his job. And you've seen Lions come in the other night to shut down the Pirates to give you the division. Is it maybe time to go after Tyler Lyons and let him get that chance? And maybe see what he can do to show you what he can do maybe for a career. Because after Choate, you're going to need a left-handed specialist next year. You're not going to keep Choate as your left-handed specialist. But even with all the injuries, things that have happened in the bullpen, Belial, no 8th inning guy with Walden, Mitch Harris got hurt when you needed him, and other guys have stepped up. Is it maybe time to give them guys a turn instead of relying on, which I guess you would call Matheny's safe blanket, and a veteran like Choate? And I would say the same thing for John Jay. As I hyped up how great he was a pitch hitter, gave you all the stats, and what does he do in a bases loaded situation? Last night he grounds a double play in a pitch hit situation. So maybe he's a time for Pham, even though Jay's left-handed, and you don't have much left-handed depth. If you lose Moss, if you don't keep Adams, pretty much you have to pick one of them guys, and Jay, or pick both of them guys to play limited positions and not really be as good defensively as Jay is. So there's a lot of variables to look at as we go on into this. But Grichuk not being in the lineup tonight kind of scares me a little bit into thinking that he might not be ready for this first-round series. And it wouldn't be a real big deal if what happened to Piscotty didn't happen. Is he ran into Peter Borges. And you see the next night, Peter Borges and John Jay the situation, and John Jay basically said, no, I'm not getting myself into that. But you see what happened to Piscotty, and that's the reason you're even talking about Grichuk or Pham. And I really do think Pham deserves the chance. But because Matheny likes to go with his veterans and the players that have done it before and before, is Pham going to get that chance? And really, we shouldn't even be talking about this because how great this team has played throughout this season. And yeah, maybe the offense has been down this year, but you've had guys step up and put great offense on the board. Carpenter, Peralta in the first half of the season, Piscotty since he came up, Randall Grichuk when you needed him. I mean, Matt Halliday wasn't hitting the home runs, but he was batting with a high average when he was up before that. So you've had guys show you what they can do in the situations that you need to be put in. And if this pitching staff stays on track, I mean, there really shouldn't be nothing to worry about. Definitely in the first round series because you're only running into one good pitcher there. Now, the Pirates have other good pitchers and the Cubs have decent goal pitchers. But it's basically Arrieta or Cole. Really, the NLDS should be the only thing you worry about because you hit the buzzsaw, which should be Kershaw and Greinke, or the Harvey, DeGrom, and the rest of that staff up against the Mets. But with all these injuries and stuff, it has to be a conversation. It has to be worked into this conversation because of all the injuries that have happened. And maybe people overlooking it and seeing, well, maybe this is your lineup, saying, oh my God, we have to get somebody else in there to provide us power. Grichuk has to get going. Piscotty has to get back in there. As you see, they're trying to work Halliday in as much as they can, even though they're giving them breaks, taking them out in the 7th inning, things like that. And I don't know if that's the kind of way you can do it in the playoffs. And you have seen the Cardinals do that before, is take guys out, bring defensive replacements in when you bring them heavy hitters to come in and shut down the game, which now you, with Wainwright now pitching, you have 3 guys you trust in the last 3 innings to go and get the job done. And maybe you're able to sacrifice a little bit of offense. Maybe you're able to throw Peter Borges or John Jay out there now. Because what you've relied on all season long is going to work, and now you throw your ace of your pitching staff and your bullpen. And now you have a 3rd guy to go out there and another guy you can trust to go out there in the 9th inning. And maybe it just skips over secrets now to where Wainwright's maybe that 8th inning guy. Maybe he is your new setup man, and if Rosenthal struggles, he's not your closer. I mean, how great is that? That you're worried about that bullpen so much and guys pitching so much, and then you get a guy that hasn't pitched since May in there. And he's the ace of your staff, and you've seen what he can do in the bullpen before. Now, he went out there the first time against the Pirates, and you could tell he was hyped. Throwing 95, 94 consistently, allowing a run in the inning. But then he comes out last night versus the Braves, goes back to the 92, lots of zip on that slider, and he looks like a guy that can go out there and get it done. It almost looks like the taste of your staff is like just a new addition, like it's coming out of the blue. And now the pitching depth gets deeper with just that one guy in there, because now you don't maybe have to carry Choate on this roster. Maybe you don't have to carry a Villanueva as an extra inning guy on this roster because one of the starters is already going to be there. Most likely Waka, unless he's your scholarship player this year. And it's not a big deal to not have a scholarship player on this team. It's 24 guys doesn't really deplete your roster too much. I mean, at times it's Tony Cruz and Charles Villanueva have been them guys. Pete Kozma. During the season, in which the season you have the best record in the game. But you would kind of hope that that scholarship player actually gets some time out there to where he's not in a situation that Waka's in, and the first time you've pitched in months is in the deciding game of the championship series. And that's why you're kind of happy to see Wainwright get out here in the regular season, because it actually gets him time before you put him in a high leverage situation. And they've kind of worked it right where they put him in to where if he allowed a run, it wasn't a big deal, 4-0. I think the other game was 7-2. But put him in a situation to where basically saying, don't allow no runs, and it helps your team. He's not going out there in the pressure situations where if he allows a run, it's going to hurt the team. And a lot of people want to complain about the way he's using his bullpen, but obviously it's working. And why I think that he should be manager of the year, just because everything he's had to go through and the way he's worked it to where these guys are still effective 162 games in is something phenomenal. And even with guys you never heard of before. Mitch Harris was a big key to our bullpen until he got injured. Carlos Villanueva and the situations he had to come in. All the times you've had to throw Seagrass and Manus out there. Rosenthal's pitched almost 70 innings this year as your closer. So the situations he has been put in is something that from definitely a young manager that never had to really manage a situation like that before. I think goes far beyond what any other manager has put themselves through this season. I mean, how early you lost your ace, how early you lost your left fielder and your starting first baseman, your eighth inning guy. Other veterans like Belisle, where you had to bring up Mitch Harris and you lose Mitch Harris, and you had to bring up guys like Tulio Lovalvo that's got it done. And maybe the MVPs of this team should go to them guys. Maybe they should be Tyler Lyons, Tim Cooney, Mitch Harris. You used Marcus Hatley a couple times. Miguel Sokolovich. A lot of guys that you've had to put in that bullpen to stabilize it, and he's worked it the right way. And then also with this lineup, it's the same way. Grichuk, Biscotti, Pham, Cruz, Kozma, Reynolds, Moss. I mean, you've had to use a guy that's never played first base at first base, and he put him in there at the right times where the lineup needed a little push, and you put a guy like Biscotti in there to get the lineup going. And it worked. It's not like they played him overly at first, overexposed him there to where he had the chance to make a lot of errors, and he had the chance to make a lot of bad plays. They didn't do that. And you got a little lucky with all the outfielders getting hurt, except for basically Jason Hayward all season. To where luckily you got him to be in positions he's been playing all season and be comfortable. I mean, he played a hell of a lot better to center field than most people thought he was going to play. They said he wasn't a center fielder. And he still went out there and did it. It still hit. But for all the talk about how bad the lineup is and how Matheny might be loyal to some guys, it hasn't cost you anything. Now, it could cost you in the postseason with playing over using guys like Jay. For some reason, a lot of people think Holiday's going to be the scholarship guy where he's only going to go out there and give you a few innings or so and then come out. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that he's going to play as much as possible. So I think there's a lot of overanalyzing, definitely by people like me, the fans, that just want to see the best lineup out there and see this team win. And maybe it's just because we're spoiled. We're so used to this happening that we're getting to the playoffs, we want more World Series championships, and that just doesn't happen consistently unless you're the Bronx Bombers or anybody like that. It's not consistently going to happen for you. Yeah, it might suck, but I mean, consistently, your team's not going to win championships, and consistently, your team's not going to go to the playoffs like the Cardinals did. There's only a few teams here and there like that. The 90s Braves, the 2000 Yankees. And now you've pretty much taken over this decade, and really almost every year since '04, it's the new dynasty that's building. And the Yankees were only ones that were winning championships. I mean, the Braves only won one time. If you go back to '04, you've already put together 2 in the last 11 years. And if you want to go past 10 years, it's 2 in basically 9 years. So essentially, you've overachieved against some of these other teams with the payroll you got, and with how young this pitching staff is, and also your lineup. I mean, you look at some of them Yankees teams and how much money they were paying to people, and how many veterans they had on them teams. I mean, every year, that team's still one of the oldest teams in baseball, even with losing guys like Jeter. I mean, Posada's no longer on the roster. Rivera, Pettit. Guys like that are no longer on this roster, and it's still one of the oldest teams in the league. I mean, Teixeira and A-Rod. Brian McCann. Jacoby Ellsbury. And they actually are starting to work into that pitching staff being a little younger, but they have overpaid guys going on that. Michael Pineda. The only guy that you can say the Cardinals are overpaid is $2 million. $2 million to a guy like Ty Wigginton or whatever they gave Mark Ellis. Then the Yankees also gave up a big prospect who's not really panning out in Seattle. But you usually don't see the Cardinals giving away guys like that. Like, a lot of people are worried about the Comiskey trade. Well, you don't know what's going to happen in that for a long time, and maybe Moss gives you something down the stretch in the playoffs. Maybe he proves something over these next 2 games that are left now that puts him on the roster as the left-handed power bat. And maybe the left-handed power bat that backs up Holiday in the late innings, and you also keep Adams on this roster. I mean, it's just kind of funny. There's only 25 spots there. And we'll get to it more in depth later. And so many people you can put there. But it's a week away at least. That gives a lot of this team time to rest. I mean, I don't know if it's even smart to throw guys like Mayness, Seagrass, and Rosie anymore. With Harris, Belayo, and Tulalava down in that bullpen. In a situation where you don't need Rosenthal, Seegers, or Hayward at all the rest of the season because you've already clinched it. But moving on from that, I don't know what's going on with Bernie Mikolas since he's left the paper, but he's writing about 50 columns a day for 101 and also doing his little radio show. But he had a column that kind of got at me. It's almost like a spur-of-the-moment column where he said Jason Hayward is his team's MVP. He might have been last week's MVP, but Jason Hayward is nowhere near this team's MVP. I mean, I'll have all the stats here to back it up in a minute. But Jason Hayward hasn't done well hitting at the top of the lineup. He didn't do well hitting in the middle of the lineup. He's a 5th or 6th hitter all season long. Just because you're really good in the field and you can get all them sabermetric stats of wins above replacement and all that, you might stop a lot of runs. But then if you say that, then they always say that Matheny is one of the best run-saving catchers in baseball. Why isn't he the MVP of the team every year? And maybe a lot of people do think he is that because of the starters ERA and all that other stats crap that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. filling independent ERA and all that. But it's not like he's been your big bopper. He's not like he's the guy that's driving in your bunch of runs. He's not a 40-base stealer. Does have 10 assists on the year. He saves you runs at times. But there's been two guys on this roster that are definitely this team's MVP. At one point, the Cardinals were 88-0 when leading after 8 innings. There's two guys that wear a big claw there. That's Kevin Seagrass, and it's who probably is second on this team for the MVP, and Trevor Rosenthal. I mean, I think they're 88-1 now with leading after 8. But 68 appearances, 48 saves, 68 2/3 innings, 2.10 ERA. This is the guy that saved your season and made sure in the positions that you have faltered in over the past few years where you didn't get into them. And they say it was a lot because he changed his mechanic. He went from doing the lineup to just exclusively pitching out of the stretch and lowered his first batters on base from 38% to 23%. So essentially every 1 out of 4 leadoff hitters were getting on. But he's the guy that came in there at the end of the 9th inning and you didn't have to worry about the game after that. And when he came in here in all these situations that a lot of teams don't put their closers in, situations where the game's tied at home, situations on the road where maybe they're down by 1, he kept them in every game that he pitched in, whether he blew a save or not. It wasn't like he went out there and blew a bunch of saves. Only blown 3 saves in the season. But when he blew the saves, he kept it at a tie game. And you've only lost the one time on the home run last week against the Pirates, but he came right back and got his 48 save in the team record after that. But there's not a whole lot of closing out pitchers that go out and pitch in any situation when they're the closer. And Rosenthal has done it all year. So consistently, you could send him out there in any situation, 7th, 8th inning, it wouldn't have mattered. And he would have proved he got the job done. And all the pitchers and all the times you have to worry about with the Franklins and the Idringhausens over the years, Salas and Motts, you finally got a guy to go out there and just shut the door. And make sure that every game he came in, you came out with a win almost. But it's hard to give the closer MVP, but I give him number 2. Your number 1 MVP, though, is Matt Carpenter. And I'm going to get to Hayward and compare him to another player on this team in a minute to kind of show you where his stats are. But Carp, 155 hits, 101 runs, 44 doubles to lead the league, 3 triples, 28 RBIs, 28 home runs, 84 RBIs, 81 walks, has struck out a lot, 151 strikeouts, batting .271, slugging .505. You tell me how that's not your team MVP. Your leadoff hitter is not only giving you a chance to go out there and score the first run when he's going out there and leading the league in doubles, but he's also giving a chance to you every time you go up to put your team up 1-0, to put the offense on his back. And he's done it all season, no matter where he's batted. He did have trouble batting the second spot for a little bit, but he was still hitting power there. But you've seen once they put him back in this leadoff spot, how the lineup kind of flowed along without Hayward Adams. With Holiday and Adams. Without Grichuk. Without John Jay. Without at times, when they had to take a break, guys like Colton Wong and Johnny Peralta. He's been your guy. And yeah, the strikeouts are going out, but he's still walking 81 times. He's still getting on base. Giving your team a chance to score consistently And that's what a leadoff hitter is supposed to do. But you don't see this kind of power from a leadoff hitter. And an offense that's deprived of runs and deprived of home runs, for your leadoff guy, for Matt Carpenter to go out there and do this as consistently as he has to be one of the biggest jumps up than any guy that played in this team this year. Maybe, essentially, any guy that's played in the league that bats leadoff. Because your MVP is definitely Bryce Harper, 40 home runs and whatever else he's doing. But you can see without having a stabilized leadoff hitter on that team, Denard Span not the greatest leadoff hitter in the world, average-wise. Bryce Harper playing as well as he has didn't do nothing for the Washington Nationals, even with all the pitching that they had. It really got back for the Cardinals to Matt Carpenter in every situation. I mean, just over his last 15, when you've been playing these hard games down the stretch, when you're playing win game, you must win games every night. I mean, last 15, 23 hits, 7 home runs, 17 RBIs, 390 average, on base percentage of 446, slugging 932. Proved again that when you really needed this guy, he was going to produce for you like no other guy. I mean, in the same time, Hayward only 16 hits, only 7 RBIs, 291 average, slug 445 on base of 409. Carpenter's better than him in all them stats. And he's better in every stat down here except for average and stolen bases. And really, and K rate. But I mean, that's going to happen when Cardinals basically said, we need you to go out and hit for power. And go out and get all these extra base hits. And go and change your game this way to make this lineup better. Because we really don't know what else we have. I mean, just because you did have the tragic loss of Oscar Taveras in the offseason and you had to bring in another guy, just because he stabilized that spot doesn't make Jason Hayward the MVP. Now, I'm going to say they both play positions, but multiple positions. But isn't third base and second base more prominent positions? And Carpenter can play anywhere on the field. He can play the outfield. He can play at first base. Can't play short and catcher and probably couldn't play center field. Hayward being left-handed can only play the outfield. But any position you put Carpenter in, and I'm not saying Hayward's defense was any lacking. Carpenter had a lot more errors than you would like to see. But you didn't go out there and say when you put him at second base, like, that's scary, putting him at second base. He went out there and did it. And it didn't weigh on him. It didn't strain on him. He went out there and got hits. He went out there and did his job. He went out there and hit home runs. Went out there and drove runs in. Better and more consistent than any player on this team. And just because you have a guy that can save you runs in the outfield doesn't help you get them runs over the plate. And with 44 doubles and 84 RBIs, 28 home runs, Carpenter has done it. But like I said, I want to compare Hayward to like another guy on this team, Johnny Peralta. I mean, basically, if you look at it, except for stolen bases, the same stats and average, but 26 to 30 doubles. Hayward only has 4 triples. Peralta that's won 17 RBI home runs for Peralta, 13 for Hayward. RBIs, 71 for Peralta, 60 for Hayward. And I'm lost for a second. 49 walks and 56 walks. Hayward with 111 strikeouts. Hayward still has 89 strikeouts. And the only thing he really got him on is stolen bases. On base percentage, 355 for Hayward, 334 for Peralta. Slugging, 439 for Hayward, 412 for Peralta. So your first half MVP was Peralta for sure. He was the guy that came in there and was doing all the things that Carpenter did. Started doing mostly down the stretch. And it was a big time to do it with nobody in the lineup and Peralta wearing down. Hayward never really had that consistent stretch where you relied on him for the offense. Consistently, you have relied on Matt Carpenter to be the best player in this lineup, no doubt, all season long. No matter what anybody says, no matter what Bernie or anybody else that's in the paper around the world says. Without Matt Carpenter, this team does not win 100 games. I don't know if I can say that for Jason Hayward. And maybe they don't win 100 without Jason Hayward, but can you sit here and say they wouldn't have won 95 with the round robin of Piscotty and Grichuk in Whitefield? Pham and Jay also in that mix. Yeah, maybe because he was one of the most consistent guys for you on the field, then maybe he should be talked about in the running. But the stats show you that he's not the top guy. And just because I don't understand how people can go off of 1 week and say he's this team's MVP, he saved his team. He only played very well for 1 week this season. He hasn't been the guy that put this team on his back and had to at all offensively or even defensively this season. It's not like that you've had just the worst center fielders in the world out there. And yeah, maybe with his speed, you could shade a little more and save the left fielders when there's Matt Holliday or Mark Reynolds or Brandon Moss out there. And yeah, he's great for you in defense. That's great. That's awesome. But if you're going to say he's the team MVP, show me a spot where you went to Jason Hayward and said, this team has to be on your back. And it came out because he couldn't hit in the leadoff spot. He couldn't hit number 4. He just couldn't do it. Because he hits 1 grand slam and throws 2 runners out. Oh, great. He got 6 runs the whole year. I mean, it's just not consistent with anything. And any way you look at it, it's just not smart thinking. So, I mean, I don't know if Bernie's up drinking 5 cups of coffee in the morning and had to pound out 35 more stories for ESPN so they could feel like he's worth what they're paying him. I don't know. I don't get it. If I got it, then I'd be the first one to say, hey, it's Hayward. But I can't see it being Hayward. I mean, just because he's one of the best guys on defense for you doesn't make him your team MVP just because this isn't the greatest defensive team. This ain't the best offensive team, but the most best consistent player and plays more prominent positions should be your team MVP. I mean, 28 home runs to 13. More than half. More doubles. More RBIs. More walks. Slugging percentage is higher. And then look at when you needed must-win games, who was the top dog for you? It was Matt Carpenter. Not Jason Hayward for 1 game or 2 games or whatever it was. For 162 games, Matt Carpenter. All right, we're going to take a break and we'll go to that St. Louis Rams game that was last week. Next on the Sports Blog of Raider STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Art Bulls are here with you. Tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STLSN. Tweet me at RBullsBJR. Well, if you looked at the score and even where the spread was, it just didn't seem like that bad of a game for the Rams. I mean, he had a chance to win it almost there to the end. But you absolutely have no offense on this team. And then it just was just a fitting way to start the day when the pyrotechnics that the Rams run every week, the fire coming out. Cool. I mean, you have to put something there at that sham of a stadium to make it somewhat exciting. But of course the Rams catch the field on fire. Delays the game. Makes it to where there's a Twitter account that comes out because the Rams decided not to put the filter on the shot vac. Now, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but when you put the shot vac together, it comes with a filter. Now, that filter is to stop debris from coming out. Now, you have to take it off when you put water in it or it messes up the filter. The filter's worthless. But that thing looked dusty as all it could get out. It's not like, it doesn't look like that they were quite using it for water. But hey, I mean, who am I to judge? But it just seemed like that kind of day. As soon as you walk out, you messed up the field. But you actually kept them. Pittsburgh Steelers offense has been one of the best offense in the league. Kind of quiet for the game. You get Roethlisberger out in the third quarter. Vic comes in. You have a chance to win the game. Your defense puts you in situations where you have a chance to win the game, and your offense can't do it to you. When we're, again, throwing deep to Lance Kendricks, who dropped the ball earlier in the game. We run him on another post. I guess the Rams are seeing something that the tight ends are getting guarded on the deep balls. But Foles just laughs it up there, of course. Looks like a punt. Pittsburgh comes down with the interception. Go on to kick a field goal. Rams decide that they're going to run a bunch of plays. Nowhere near the sideline with a minute left in the game. And a drop ball guy, Kenny Britt, ends the game for you. But the Rams, you can't move the ball on offense if you have no rushing attack and your guys don't catch the ball. I mean, Jeff Fisher finally said, if you get paid to catch the ball, you got to catch the ball. Finally, he said something. Oh, my God. Something that actually made sense. I mean, he actually said something that makes sense. And consistently every week, your team MVP is your special teams. Austin Zerline. And really not even Austin this week. And Hecker, who almost got you the ball moving a little bit with the fake punt, but of course, the one time that the Rams do it, he underthrows the ball. And you seen him jumping around like a crazy person once he threw the ball, knowing he didn't throw it far enough. And he's not, it's how many times it's worked before for the Rams without it not working. It's pretty remarkable that he's been as consistent as he has at throwing the ball. I mean, this probably this got to be the first incompletion in 2 or 3 years for him. But your offense can't be Johnny Hecker throwing the ball. I mean, your leading rusher was Gibbons. He had 1 rush for 24 yards. Mason, 9 for 16. Gurley, in his first action, finally got there, but he didn't look like he knew what he was doing in this offense. And he kind of said that. We'll talk about it later when I do the football show. But 6 carries for 9 yards. I mean, if they consistently can stop the run and put you in long downs, it's going to be easy to stop. Just go stand at the first down marker, let them throw it 7, 8 yards, and make them work for the first down. And the Rams don't have a lot of big wide receivers that can do that. I mean, you had a pretty good game from Kenny Britt, 7 of 102. You tried to get Austin involved. He had 5 catches. But that's the only guys that you had to do anything on offense. It was basically Brent and Austin. I mean, like I said, Foles and Roethlisberger's stats were about the same. 19 of 28, 192. Interception for Foles. Roethlisberger, 20 of 24 for 192. 1 interception. But the third downs are what get the Rams every week. 6 for 12 for Pittsburgh, 2 of 10 for St. Louis. That's how you're going to move the ball. getting the conversions on third downs. And you can't allow 50% and only go out there and you only convert 20% of yours. That's not going to win you games. You can't go out there and have 47 penalty yards and only have 71 rushing yards. If you add that together, you got 30 basically rushing yards. You can't get the ball down to the 9-yard line and then somehow end up at the 24 on third down. There's just inconsistencies in this offense that doom this offense every week. Like I said, you need to try something else with the offensive line. It's not working for you. But you do try things at times. You have tried to put Randy out there, and he's been getting blown up. But you have to, I'm going to say, I guess guys do have to catch the ball, but if you don't run the ball, you might have to try a different run scheme for this line. Because your top two running backs can't have 25 yards on 15 carries. That's not going to work for you. Your top two receivers can't only have 12 catches for 130 yards, 140 yards. That's a week for some guys. That's a week every week for Le'Veon Bell, or for Antonio Brown, who had a big game, but you didn't score no touchdowns. You kept him out of the end zone. You kept from really him hitting you with that big dooming play. Bell 16 rushing for 62 yards. So your defense played consistently for another week. You had the interceptions. You had the 6 sacks. But the Rams aren't moving the ball on offense, to where if your defense puts you in any of them good chances, it doesn't really matter. Vic, he's 5 for 6, but only threw for 38 yards. So actually, your cornerbacks and safeties are finally actually doing a good job. I'm not saying they did a good job the whole game. Jenkins with an interception, 9 tackles, but I want to go down the list, and I want them to tell me how many of them tackles, from not just Jenkins, but this whole offense, that are tackles from behind. Give me all the tackles that they made on the line to stop a play, to stop a third down conversion, to make it fourth down. Give me some of them. Give me the real tackles. Don't give me all these tackles that I see from the Rams. And when your defense is going out there consistently doing this, you have to find another way to move the ball in the offense. The Rams did make 2 offensive moves this week, releasing Isaiah P, trading Chris Gibbons, but that doesn't help the offense get no better. Maybe it does get a guy like Quick to get out there and do more, but I've seen somewhere that they said, with Gibbons gone and Quick in there, Quick is for sure going to be your top rusher for the week. And they're not wrong, because it's been Austin and Gibbons have been your top rushers for all 3 games this season. But you can't go out there and let this defense do what you do and then run the offense the way the Rams have. It just doesn't make any sense of how the Rams did not find a way to somehow get a touchdown on 1st and 9, or 1st and goal from the 9. How you get Roethlisberger out there and Vic and them don't move the ball, and you're lobbing it up to Lance Kendricks after he already dropped the ball. He claims he lost in the lights. He lost the ball in the lights before. You're going to lob it up to him again with a safety in the middle of the field? It's not like he's going to go out there and fight for the ball. So it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you got to get some kind of running game going. And I understand that Mason and Gurley are hurt, but you had Cunningham do pretty good in that first week, and you haven't seen him since Mason's been back. So this Rams offense is it just so perplexing that Cunningham don't understand that it took 3 weeks for Quick to come back and understand it? Does it just make a whole lot of sense? Is it that hard that the guys don't understand how to block on the run? is it that hard that you don't understand that you got to convert third downs? It's you have to get open and get to the first down marker to succeed. Definitely if you're going to allow the other team to be 50% of third downs. I mean, is it that hard to figure out that, am I, like, bringing something new onto the Rams? Because it's been 4 years of basically the same thing, and you keep changing offensive coordinators. I mean, God, wouldn't this have been Bradford's 15th offensive coordinator? I mean, holy cow, it's I mean, it's laughable. It really is. Every week well, you can say the defense played well for the third straight week, but the offense did nothing. I mean, it was all special teams and defense in the win. You move the ball a little bit, but your defensive special teams put you in the situations that give you a chance to move that ball a little bit. So I just don't see where the Rams get off is thinking that the same things are going to work every single week. We'll get more to that as later. We do the football show probably around 8 o'clock tonight. Alright, we're going to take a break. We'll get into weird news next, right here on the sports blog of the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the sports blog of the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. Tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. Tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STLSN. Let's get into it. Weird news. A Florida woman who allegedly attempted to buy $75 worth of marijuana only to be shorted, then decided the matter was for authorities. Police in Fort Myers, Florida say Aaron Klitsch, 36, called 911 on Saturday demanding something be done about what they described as the slipshod salvia sale. The wheels of justice quickly turned when officers arrived. Klitsch was waiting outside, still speaking to dispatchers about being shortchanged. After Klitsch told officers that the dealer inside took her money, she was arrested and put in a patrol car for misusing 911. Officers later found a bag of weed in her seat, resulting in an additional charge. I don't know if that was in her seat in the house or what. I'm going to guess in the seat in the car. It didn't say. She was later released from the Lee County Jail on $3,000 bond. Authorities say that Klitsch might have avoided the charges if she had used the non-emergency line. The dealer who Klitsch accused of shortchanging her was not arrested because of insufficient evidence. Now, I report up a lot of stories of people calling 911 an accident and getting themselves in trouble. But this lady literally called 911 to say, hey, this guy shortchanged me on my weed. She literally thought that the cops should know that, hey, I'm buying weed and I got shortchanged for it. In a state where it's not legal either. So, I mean, and it's of course in Florida. I mean, only in Florida where, I guess it could happen anywhere. We have heard stories like this. But, I mean, to call the cops and just think that's going to work, it's just, yeah, you're telling on yourself. You're literally sitting there and telling on yourself. All right, New Hampshire authorities are searching for a man who tried to steal several drills from a hardware store in order to make chicken noises and run away. Employees at the Sears Hardware in Concord said that the man had placed 4 DeWalt drills inside his cart, then tried to leave without paying for the drills. When store employees tried to stop the subject, he made what were described as chicken noises and fled on foot, leaving the drills behind. Police said in a statement that the drills are valued at approximately $900. The police statement said it was a 25 to 30-year-old white male wearing clothes. I didn't even get that, but of course wearing flip-flops. That sounds about right. Country bumpkin drug addict in the cold of Connecticut going to steal. And he knew what he was looking for. The water, pretty nice drills, $900. I think that they're a little low on that for price. I think they're like $300 a piece. But he knew what he was looking for, and he was going for the big highs. But to easily get away from it by just making chicken noises. I mean, that's some really... I guess, I don't know. I don't know how store employees work. I never remember anybody stealing from any place I worked where I had to do anything like that. Alright, for another reason I'm not getting on the ever getting on the plane story. For most of the signing to an airplane are pretty clear. Not for me, because I've never been on an airplane, never will be. But for one passenger on a KLM flight from Edinburgh to Amsterdam, apparently the obvious wasn't so obvious. James Gray was arrested and fined €600, 675 American, after he tried to open a jet exit at 300,000 feet. He told authorities he mistook the exit for the bathroom door. He reportedly claims he merely touched the handle while temporarily confused, but the crew dealt with the situation firmly, ordering him to his seat and informing he'd be arrested when landing in Amsterdam. He was held for one night and had to take a rival company plane home after being banned from 5 years from the KLM airline. And I'm glad they did that. Ban it. And can't bad things happen if you open a door that high in the air? Like oxygen and all that. And wouldn't it somehow off balance the plane with that much pressure coming in at one time? Like, that is why I am never getting on an airplane. Because the craziest things can happen just by getting on an airplane. Some guy is literally opening the door and saying, "Come on, I need to use the restroom at 30. And he tried to say, oh, he mistook it because he was temporary. No! You're temporary crazy. It always seems like when people get on these flights that they go crazy. And I don't get it. Alright, that's weird news. And no. And we can do a little whole town rundown if you want to. The Ambush are coming back soon. And the Blues start, I think, the 8th. So it'd be nice to get some more St. Louis sports on this show if I didn't talk enough today. Did you hear about this hurricane that's supposedly could affect NFL Major League games? Hurricane Joaquin. There was actual thought about maybe even moving the time of the Eagles-Washington game or moving the venue. Could affect a series at the wild card, even though the Yankees look like they pretty much got that wrapped up against Baltimore. Could also affect the Nets. I think they're playing Washington in the Reds and Pittsburgh series. And then also travel plans for the Dolphins and Jets game. And how crazy sports can get to where dangerousness kind of and sports and life almost collide at the same time. When you're going out there to provide entertainment while fearing for not only your life, but the life and safety of others around you. And I don't know how much it's calmed down. The Eagles Washington game ended up staying at the same time. Yankees are getting through their series just fine with Boston. And they pretty much locked up that wild card spot. The Mets are fighting, and they haven't had a problem yet, but they're fighting for the Dodgers to see who's going to get home field in that series. And then pretty much the Reds and Pittsburgh series is pretty much matched up. So I think you could just cancel out of MLB games anyways. But if the Yankees did get canceled the other night, I actually remember that. So, but they actually got off today. I know that the last couple games. But Todd Bowles of the Jets said he took his travel plans and stuff about London from when he talked to Coach Jeff Fisher. Well, Fisher went out there and lost like 47-7. I don't know if you want to take any advice from him. You definitely don't want to take any offensive coaching advice. Maybe defensive, but I don't know about too much offensive. But just intriguing that he's talked to Coach Jeff Fisher about plans of how to work in London. And Jeff Fisher probably said, well, you go out there and you get the job done. And you let your guys do whatever they want. And just say you're going to fix it later. So, yeah. The worst Jeff Fisher impersonation of all time. Moving on. to the UFC as Johnny Hendricks was taken to the ER after Hendricks experienced health issues by cutting weight, including a block in his intestine and a kidney stone. So the number one contendership fight between Hendricks and St. Louis's own Tyron Woodley had to be called off. You officially said that Woodley would receive his show money. Daniels said Woodley would receive the title fight against Lawler, or against the winner of the Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit fight that doesn't take place to June 2nd. But he also said, what I said was he's next in line, but there's a lot of variables involved. Why said Woodley adding Woodley hasn't fought in a long time. He also revealed that Hendricks was 26 pounds overweight 3 days before the weigh-in on Tuesday. Now, they said Hendricks has had some problem cutting weight, never missed a weight cut, but always had issues with cutting weight. And if he's sitting around 185 just randomly, I don't understand why he would try to cut down to 170. Why wouldn't you stay at 180? If you're at 183, and what's 26 pounds? That would be 196. So he was cutting a lot of weight already down to 193. I mean, that's a lot of, or 183 from 190. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me at all. So it's kind of not cool to see that now St. Louis is starting to be prominent in the MMA game. With the guy in Bellator, Michael Chandler, came on and had a big fight at the Scott Trade, won. And now Tyron Woodley could be in shot for that middleweight title. But it's also kind of crazy to see, like, go on Twitter and see how, like, people were going at Hendricks. A guy named Ben Askew was going at him. Vincent Henderson said, guess who can make weight on a day's notice? Michael Chandler, the St. Louis, said the weight cuts begin months before the fight week. Please stop making excuses. The one I seen on Hendricks' side was from Diego Sanchez, who said he really doesn't need all you bashing him and all that. But is it worth it? I mean, really, if it's not like that Hendricks took this fight on a moment's notice. He had time to train and time to kind of cut down on where he had to be in fighting shape. And to be losing weight, I guess, at such a rapid rate to where you basically hurt yourself. Make yourself go through a situation like this, having to go to the ER while you're doing this to make a fight. This doesn't make any sense if you're sitting at 183 and the fighting's right there at 185. It's kind of funny now because people saying that Hendricks didn't really want to fight Woodley and that Hendricks went at the wrong way, why does Conor get a title shot and he doesn't? Well, fight for it. Fight for your shot. Go out there and if you're going to get the weight, I mean, if he would have cut the weight, he would have had a chance to show he was a number one contender. And he didn't do it, and he's kind of making excuses for it seems like to me. When you had a lot of time to plan and get a nutritionist to be ready for this fight. I mean, they just fired a nutritionist too, which doesn't make any sense. If you've had trouble cutting weight in the past, do you think you can do it on your own? Do you think that you got enough memory to do it if you've had trouble before? And I don't know where it goes from here for him. But he probably does have to move up to a different division now. To be prominent again in the UFC if you can't make the weight in a division where you've been prominent before. So he would have to start over again, you would think. And you think later in your career you would kind of want to start doing that now. But you kind of hope that Tyron gets that fight. That would be cool to see another St. Louis guy get a shot. And he's also a good fighter. I think 15-3. And, yeah, he probably will have to fight in there again. The fight's not until January 2nd. I can't even remember the last time he fought. Woodley, that is. So, we'll see how it works out from there. Now, we'll end the show on maybe try to rework this 25-man roster out. Now, I'm only going to do it for the NLCS and how I think the Cardinals will roll. 10 pitchers, 11 at the most. So, we'll go with the pitchers first. And pretty easy, the first 7 are easy. Lynn, Lackey, Walker, Garcia, Manis, Seagrass, and Rosenthal. Now it's pretty much clear who your top 8 are with Wainwright coming back, that you're going to have him in here. But now you got to look, do you put a guy like Choate in the roster? And now you also have to look, do you take away from the veterans and give the younger guys a shot? Or do you stick with the veterans because they have pitched better down the stretch and you know what they can do? So, your top 8, and I'm going to say 9 just to add Choate in there. Lynn, Lackey, Waka, Garcia, Manis, Seagrass, Rosenthal, Wainwright, and Choate. I think if you put Choate in there, you would have to go for 11. So it leaves you Broxton, Cishek, Villanueva, Tuliolava, Belial, Harris, and Lyons. I think you could pretty much minus out Harris. And with Choate's on the roster, I think you could pretty much vote out Lyons. So that leaves you with Belial, Tuilawa, Villanueva, Cishek, and Broxton for 2 spots. And I really do like the way that Tuilawa pitches. But I think being a one guy on this team, I think he gets marked out. For some reason, I had this feeling that your 2 guys are going to be Broxton and Cishek. Even the way Villanueva's pitched all year, I think if you have 4 starters on this roster, that you're going to have one of them in the bullpen in this first series, and that really just takes away from Villanueva's spot on this roster either way. But you know who you got to have on the roster at the time. And it's guys that get the job done. And do you really know what a guy like Tuilawa can do? Belial, even though he's come back and pitched well so far, do you know what he can do better than maybe a guy like Broxton, who throws hard, or a guy that's done before like Cishek? So I think if you go 11 guys, you got Lynn, Lackey, Waka, Garcia, Manis, Seagrass, Rosenthal, Wainwright, Choate, Broxton, and Cishek. And we'll see how that works out from there. And tweet me or hit us up on Facebook and let us know how you would go on the pitching staff. But now I think it's much harder to work on this lineup. If Molina's healthy or not, you pretty much know who are going to fill 6 of your 8 spots. Molina, Cruz, Carpenter at third, Wong at second, Peralta at short, Halliday in left, and Hayward in right. If you keep 11 guys, that's only 14 hitters. If you're automatically keeping Cruz, that's 7 with Molina. You're down to 7 guys, and you have to fill your center field and first base positions. So this is where Mike Matheny is going to have a lot of trouble. And then you have another point is, do you keep a third catcher in case of what happens to Molina? Is a guy like Piscotty ready and healthy to go? How healthy is Grichuk? Really, how healthy is Adams, Jay, and Grichuk? Is Pham you get your guy? Who do you keep Garcia or Cosma for that backup shortstop position? Even though they love to put Kaz in there, they don't seem to love Garcia at shortstop. He seems to play everywhere else but short of late. But wouldn't you like to see him get a chance? He's a much better pitch hitter. Cosma's about to set the record for the first guy to bat over 100 times and not have a extra base hit. And you've seen Greg Garcia come in and have power off the bench, even though it's limited. That's still better than seeing what Cosma can go out there and do. And who's your left-handed power bat? Is it Adams and Moss? And do you keep Jay on there to have another left-handed hitter? Or do you take Jay off and have Adams and Moss on there? How I would do it if he's healthy. Piscotty's at first, Grichuk's in center, if they're both healthy. So there's 9 guys with Cruz. You got to keep a backup shortstop. There's 10 with what's going to be Cosma. You have to have Adams for the power bat. Or Moss. That's 11. Reynolds, the way he's played, 12. Now you got to get to a point is, do you keep Borges? Or do you keep Jay? And I think Jay makes it because of the left-handed at bat. 13. And then you get to the point, are you keeping Isley or Tyler Mello as your third catcher? And then your fight's going to be between Pham, Borges, and most likely Moss. So there's still a lot of work. I, for some reason, think because of speed and Halladay being injured and Piscotty might not be in all the way there, Grichuk's health, I think you're going to see Peter Borges on this roster. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing if your top 8 guys can do it. But wouldn't you like to see something better off the bench? Wouldn't you like to see a Tommy Pham get a chance? Wouldn't you like to see maybe just have an extra power guy and have Moss and Adams both on this roster to give you something different off the bench? I think that's something you would like to see. But loyalty is a big thing to Mike Matheny, and he seems like he has to be loyal to some of these players. So I just kind of wanted to kind of give you around my 25-man roster. Tweet us at rbowlesbyjr, the Greater STL Sports Network. Hit us up on Facebook at Greater STL Sports Network. And tell us how you think this 25-man roster is going to shake out. Alright, that's going to do it for today's show. We're going to get back to you tonight for the football show. But for now, I'm Robert Bowlesby, and this is the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network.